listening to the Air Raid Hour of Buffalo Fanatics Video Experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to another episode of the Air Raid Hour presented to you by the Buffalo Fanatics. And before you ask, don't worry, this will be the last show without Judge. He's back from Vegas. He's alive. He didn't break the bank, unfortunately, so he is coming back to his real life with us and his real job. So he will be back on Monday's show. But tonight we've got a good show for you. We've got a lot of different topics we're going to cover around OTAs starting, and that's primarily going to be our main topic for the night. But let me give a shout out to those who are already in the house tonight. We've got Scott Blakely, Randy, of course, is in the house. Chris Janke, Andrew Tad Ross. We've got Andrew Tad Ross. I mentioned. We've got Richard Rush is in the house. John Herring, D Handsome, Matt Soda, who we actually referenced. Matt, we referenced the comment you made last week on last show. I'm not sure if you were in there or not, but we did credit you on a comment we made last week. So. Roman Bobic is back. A lot of good comments from Roman last week. Lucio Estevez, Harold Fuller, a lot of good comments from Harold last week as well. Dan Magnus and others filing in. So we appreciate you joining us tonight. There will not be any issues with the stream tonight unless it's YouTube's fault. It will not be our fault tonight. And of course, we're presented to you now by Symbol, symbol.app/fanatics to get your $10 deposit bonus. More and more Symbols putting out daily stuff on social media, specifically Twitter. They've got a couple good, they've got their founders now getting a little more active on Twitter as well, and giving you all the good information on the Symbol marketplace. And you can get your $10 deposit bonus there using the code Fanatics. A few more people filing in. Young King, a regular of ours, Stephen Campione as well. Matthew Ronkowski, another regular of ours as well. And Jason Taylor. So as people are filing in, Kendall, it's Thursday. It's a nice day out today. How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I've had a weird day. You know, I've had
and what's the status of your backdrop? Pierre's in the chat. I see him in the chat. What's the status?
Yeah, let's see. Pierre, where's it at? Because
has it been shipped?
I don't know. I gave him my address probably a week ago. Actually, I got the stand ready. It's just waiting to be filled out. I got the stand. It just needs some content within it.
Nice. Yeah, and I mean it's nice. It's nice to have the backdrop. Pierre saw about how he's going to get some more shares of Sim Bills, which is obviously something that we are very interested in. So. Pierre says, patience, young grasshopper on the backdrop. Okay. Fair enough. So tonight, to give everyone a layout of what we're doing on the show, we are going to hit some news and notes on general Bills information. We're going to get into Dion Dawkins' interview from Good Morning Football, which was great. If you haven't seen it yet, it's only about 8 or so minutes long. It's on YouTube. It's everywhere. Go ahead and check that out. We're going to get into the players who are not at OTAs, voluntary OTAs, I should mention, and decide and discuss whether or not that is a problem for certain players and maybe not for others. We're going to get into what McDermott said about second-year promising edge player AJ Epenesa. And then finally, we're going to, of course, leave the back end of the show to Q&A, whatever you guys want to ask us about. It's a little bit of a potpourri show tonight, which is great. Judge will be back on Monday to help reel us in a bit. But for tonight, Kendall, we're going to hit on some of the big topics of OTAs. And the first, before we get into the OTA topic, we're going to talk about this Dion Dawkins Good Morning Football interview he had with the personalities on NFL Network. So he was brought in, and I don't know if many people actually know the history of how he got the Snowman nickname. I mean, for those who don't, we're going to share it right now. He basically went on and said that when he was growing up in New Jersey, as he was trying to make money and trying to, basically make himself a little side hustle there. He said he got up early, 5:30 in the morning, and would offer to help snow shovel out people's driveways, walkways, clean off their cars, get everything ready for them. So by the time they came out and go to work, he had already taken care of their cars, driveways, walkways, and everything for them. And honestly, like, it kind of tells you the type of guy he is, right? That he's willing to get up early in the morning. It's probably dark, gloomy out, like cold. And he's willing to get up and do that, as a little hustle to make some extra cash. I don't think a lot of guys would be willing to do that. So what did you think about those comments he made about the origination of the Snowman moniker?
I loved it. I was one of the people who went into watching that not knowing how it happened. I just kind of thought he just started saying Snowman, and it kind of bothered me a lot. But now I love it. I really love it, because you think about your youth, and I mean, I'm not too removed from my youth, but you think about your youth and like your high school years or even your college years, and you think of the snow days, and you're just like, yes, and you just head right back on the pillow, like. Act like, you wake up at like 5, check your phone. Oh, cool. Campus closed down. Cool. Head back on the pillow. Not him.
Let me interject here. Check your phone is a nice problem to have. Back when I was in school, we had to watch the bottom ticker on TV to see whether our county schools were closed. And I'm sure people had it way worse before, like had to listen to the radio or something. But checking the phone is nice, man. You got to admit, that's pretty nice.
Never have to get out of bed to see if your day is canceled, and you get to go right back into REM sleep.
Yeah. So that was awesome. Yeah. I had a couple other quotes I wanted to hit on from his interview. And the one thing I took away, probably more than anything, overarching, takeaway, was just how, infectious his personality is. And we already kind of know that, right? But like, to see him be so honest and to see him being so comfortable with the national folks, right, from NFL Network, it really shows you how comfortable he is, not only in his own skin, but with this team and this organization. And we saw what he said in that Players Tribune article with from the and what he wrote. So, here's a quote he said: "Guys grow from going through that hard time together," referring to the loss in the Chiefs game. And as a follow-up to that, he says, "We know what it felt like losing that Chiefs game. The Bills every year have something to prove." Now, that wasn't in sequential order, but those were 3 quotes he said. And it really struck me because we know about the Diggs photograph that's been widely, viewed, where he's got, the hands on the head and he's looking back at the Chiefs celebrating. Really great photo. And, honestly, like, side note, like, good photos in today's day and age where it's like videos and constantly, moving things, next thing's next. A good photo, man, still goes a long way. And I will give credit to that photo. Anyway, the theme there was that this team seems to have taken that loss personally, much like we know they took the loss to Houston the year before very personally. So when you hear Dion say something like that, what does that make you feel? What do you as a fan, what do you take away from when you hear one of your like highest paid and like cornerstone players say something like that?
That's exactly what you want to hear. You don't want to hear about guys that get paid and they take their foot off the gas pedal. Because I believe the question where, like, how that got to that point, it was like, how do you guys feel about your chances in 2021 based on how well you did in 2020? And his answer, I mean, you touched on it with a couple of the quotes, but I mean, holistically, his answer was like, nothing's earned. Like, just because we did it last year, like, we have to do it again. And that's kind of what Josh Allen said in his press conference as well. Like, you can tell the leadership council, at least the players, like the leadership council from the players, they're locked in on that kind of theme. The fact that it doesn't really matter what they did last year. Like, it's great that they got to that point, and there were a lot of lessons learned from that deep playoff run last year, but that's all you get from the deep playoff run, just the lessons. It doesn't mean that they're guaranteed to get to at least the AFC Championship next year, and they know that. And the fact that they know that means that there's probably a higher probability that they will get back there. The fact that they're still hungry to get back there, and they know that it's earned, not given. So I love that, especially from someone you see with such a, he could be perceived from the outside looking in, big ego guy because he has such a big personality. He's a good worker. Like you can from the snowman to those comments, like you can see this guy works. He's committed to his craft.
Yeah, and one of the comments I had written down, kind of listening to him, and Randy says it really well here. He says, sounds like they echo their head coach. The note I wrote down was literally culture. The culture is embedded in him, meaning that the culture that the organization set, which has started obviously with McDermott in 2017, he was the first one here. To the extent you want to say it starts with the Pagulas, that's a separate discussion. But from a football operations standpoint, McDermott is the guy that it starts and ends with. Like, don't get me wrong, like Brandon Beane is there, but McDermott was there first, and McDermott is the one that's establishing that culture with the players on a day in and day out basis on the practice field, in the meetings.
Those press conferences, all of them sound like extensions of McDermott. Every single one, like Tremaine Edmonds' recent one, like they're all, even with like all these COVID questions, you can tell like the coach is in their ear, like they know how to answer things and keep things in-house, tight ship, nothing getting out, Fort Knox. Like they're all on the same page, and it's great. It's great to see that cohesiveness.
Yeah, and Steven says that's what you want to hear. It is what you want to hear. But you know what's great about it is it's what you wanted to hear without it being like the canned player speak / coach speak type answers, right? Like you could tell he was into the interview. Like he was really kind of there because he wanted to be there. He wasn't there because he had to be there. At least that's the impression I got from him. Right. And it came across that way. Then he was asked about the Bills' schedule and the fact that they only had 4 primetime games compared to a couple of these other teams that had 5 who, was pointed out maybe didn't deserve more than the Bills. And he said, if I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically said at first he was upset about the schedule, but then he took a step back and said, hey, it's a win. Like when I first got here, we were lucky to have 1 primetime game, and now we've had 4 2 years in a row. And that's kind of how I viewed it. And on top of the fact is, like, as far as the Bills' home schedule, it wasn't greatly set up for primetime this year. But to get 4 again, I mean, we I can understand some people saying like, well, why did the Rams or whoever get more? Like, why did the Saints look, we still got 4. That's a lot of primetime games. The fact of the matter is a lot of those primetime games are based on the markets of the teams, division games. And, for the Bills are starting to get to the point where the market size is mattering less because they have superstar players, and they have Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs and Trey White, and they have guys like that regardless of the size of the market, they are going to be put on prime time because they're starting to become superstars in the NFL, and not just superstars on the field, but superstars personalities as well, right? Good guys, wouldn't surprise me at all if we started seeing them on more commercials and things like that. But Andrew has a question while we're talking schedule. Can't the Panthers game get moved to primetime? Yes, I believe it can. It is currently a Sunday. Is the Panthers one the one that could be Saturday or Sunday?
I think it's Saturday as of now, but it's TBD. Could be moved to Sunday. I don't know exactly Randy says yes, Panthers game could flex to say primetime.
Also, I love the talk of the wood fire stoves and all that going on in the chat about how people stayed warm back in their time. So, while we're talking schedule, we need new guys to step up this year because the DCs have spent the whole offseason trying to stop Jay in the passing game. We're going to get into that when we start talking about Josh Allen and his OTA performance. So that's something we will get to in a bit, John. My wife and baby are waving at me. So I'm waving back at them. So continuing on with Dion, he says, and he was asked about Josh Allen's trash talking, and he said, quote, "If you're a true competitor and you're not talking smack, what are you doing?" Right. And we see that he went on to say that Josh is like the younger brother showing his passion when he trash talks, and that they're like the O-line group's like the older brothers protecting him when he gets into trouble. But he also said Josh is humble. So it's the same thing, right? We talk about the head coach culture, filtering down to the players, humble and hungry. We say that all the time. And that kind of showed in the answer Dion gave about Josh's trash talking. So I want to ask you, and I want to ask the comments section, where do you come out on trash talking? Are you more of the talk your trash, it's great, if you can back it up, do it? Or are you more on the side of don't do it, just go back to the huddle and live to see the next play? Kind of more like how John Brown was when John Brown was always like making big plays, and he just never said a word. He just went back to the huddle. Whereas other guys, are more demonstrative. Where do you come out on that in comment section? What do you think about the trash talking? Where do you come out on that?
So personally, I'm very split and on the fence on this. I really respect those guys that just have nothing to say and they're just like so laser focused, like they don't give a shit about talking trash. Like John Brown, he gets maybe a quick like first down, back to the huddle. That's it. Like quick little celebration like that, back to the huddle. However, like I really do understand the value, the mind games, the competitive fire. Like you want people like that on your team. However, the tipping point for me it's things like that. Yeah, he should be. Yeah,
this is a great comment from Richard. Like, now's the time to talk. Like people doubted you your whole career.
Yeah,
not even your whole career, but through high school, college, and into the NFL.
Yeah, he's earned it. So, he's probably got a lot like built up that he's trying to get off. But for me, I definitely see the value in it. But I think there's a tipping point, and I think you saw it at the end of that Chiefs game when he got sacked and out of frustration, like he tossed the ball into that guy's helmet and he gets flagged for it. Or like years past, you see Jerry Hughes like get hot-headed and get flagged a lot. Like I'm okay with the trash talking, but there is a tipping point when it's detrimental to your team's success. And that's where I'm like, okay, you got to learn to put a lid on it and just cut it out and keep it between the lines of the game. But there is a time and a place for trash talking, and it's plentiful on that football field. So I like that our starting quarterback, not a lot of starting quarterbacks are that vocal. I like that our starting quarterback is like that. And we know he used to emulate his game and he loved Tom Brady. And we see how much trash Tom Brady talks when he gets in the heat of the moment. And it's a nice thing to have because it shows that competitive fire. Teammates want to rally around that. You saw Dion Dawkins' comments about how they protect him and they love seeing him with that fire underneath him. All of that stuff. It's great, but there's that tipping point.
Yeah, and if you like Josh Allen trash talking, smash those likes, and you'll help us out in the old YouTube algorithm. Chris makes an interesting comment here. Trash talking is a psychological weapon on the weak-minded. Let your play be the trash talking. And I understand that. And I think that it would be different if he was talking trash and they were like, you see this actually happen a lot in the NFL. Like somebody will score like a meaningless touchdown at the end of the game and their team's getting blown out and they'll like trash talk or like do some like overblown celebration. And you're like, what are you doing, man?
Yeah.
And we all know like it's been said, and it's not a new concept. Like football is super emotional. It's an emotional game. Like probably the most emotional sport that can be played. So trash talking is going to be part of that. Right. And I'm fine with it. Like to the extent that, it's not going to get Josh in trouble. Like he got the penalty in the LA game, which is fine because it was just one, but like, he's smart enough to know that he can't be doing that, into the point where it's going to hurt his team. Right. So, so we've got a little bit of a surprise for you guys right now. And I didn't know if it was going to happen tonight or not, but we're going to go ahead and do it right now.
Why not?
What's up, gentlemen? How we doing tonight?
We've got the judge back in the house. We're talking about trash talking. We're throwing you into the fire. Where do you come out on trash talking overall? Because we were talking about Dion Dawkins' interview, and he's talking about Josh Allen's trash talking and how, he's like the younger brother and the O lineman kind of go and protect him. And he can do it because he's a competitor. And so where do you come out on the trash talking?
I like it when my team does it. I don't like it when another team does it to me. Is pretty much where I come. Because no offense. Like when I hear like those stories about Josh Allen trash talking and all that stuff, I haven't caught the Dion Dawkins interview yet. Like I love that shit. Like when that clip of Josh Allen getting the penalty from the ref, and then the ref going over to Sean McDermott, and then Sean McDermott telling Josh Allen how much he loves it. Like all of that stuff. I love that. But like when we're getting our ass beat by like another team, I remember the Jets a couple of years ago were dancing all over us. Like I hate it. So I'm very much a homer in that regard where I like it when our team does it. I'm not a big fan of when it's done to us.
Fair enough. All right. I think that pretty much covers the Dion interview. Let's move on now to our second topic and getting into the OTAs. And it's the topic of players showing or not showing up for voluntary OTAs. And we know there's a list of Bills players who did not show up. The notable names were Diggs and Starr. We're not even going to talk about Diggs because it's a non-issue. This is a normal course of action for him. So we're not even getting on that. The main topic of conversation around who did not show up to camp the last few days was Starr Lodolele, and that is mainly because he did not play in 2020. So there's split opinion of this among content creators, among media, that it is a big deal because we don't know what kind of shape he's in, or it's not a big deal because he's a professional and he'll come back and be ready to go. So, Steve, let's start with you. Starr not being at voluntary OTAs, big deal or not a big deal?
I think that entire defensive line not being at OTAs is a big deal. Whether it's Vernon Butler, it's Jerry Hughes. Was Mario Addison there or not? I didn't catch whether Mario Addison was there.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think Mario Addison was there as well. Like one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid defensive line in football last year, completely underperformed. And we go out and we spend our first 2 picks this year on defensive line and those guys don't show up. Like, give me the young guys. Like, I'm all in on this youth movement. I hope Obata makes the team. I hope, like, I obviously Rousseau makes the team and Basham makes the team. And you got younger guys like Justin Zimmer who are coming up and Daryl Johnson. Get these guys out of here. Like, no offense, after how they performed last year, going back, and I've watched a few games now, our pass rush on some of these plays were just absolutely pathetic. The way they performed last year, they should have been inching at the bit to get into these OTAs and get a fresh start and get in here and mold these young guys and create a culture and just from the start been ready to go, rip, roar, and go. So it's disappointing that they're sitting at home doing whatever it is they're doing, whether it is whether they're actually training super hard on their own or not. It's just that whole defensive line not being there pissed me off.
Yeah, and we got Nathan saying you sound a little quiet, so maybe turn your gain up or move your mic a little closer. But so Kendall, you next. Starr being absent from voluntary OTAs, big deal or not a big deal? It seems like most people in the comment section are saying not a big deal, but it would have been nice if he was there. So where do you come out on this?
I think emotionally it's a big deal. I think realistically, like these whatever couple of weeks that it's going to be. Sorry, I cannot laugh at that and not get cut off by that. I think all those vets that we were just talking about, Hughes, Addison, and Starr, those 3 specifically, I would have liked to see them there, if not only for the reason of helping the younger guys get along and get their feet under them, help mentor them, establish that relationship. But I think for the veterans, I think, the 5A5 report and Zbot talked about it last night. I think the vets have a little bit more leeway in terms of, coming to OTAs, like they're voluntary. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like especially with Starr missing last year, that's someone we really want to see at camp. We really want to see him putting in the work. With Starr specifically, it's very curious because, I mean, we know he opted out last year and he probably opted out because of family concerns and COVID and stuff like that. for all we know, it's more precautionary than anything. And it's him like, for all we know, he's in between his first and second dose of shots, and he's waiting for his second dose to be like fully effective or something like that. And then he'll be right at camp, right where he left off. So it could be something that obviously we just don't know because we're not in the building. For me, it's the younger guys like a Vernon Butler, Vernon Butler just had a restructured deal. Like he restructured in a bad way for him. He had to take a pay cut. You would think he has something to prove, and he's trying to prove that in OTAs, like use all the time in front of the coaching staff that he can get. People like Devin Singletary, like we saw how hard he's working off campus, Bills facility, but you would like to see him there because he's one of those younger guys. That's where I stand on it. I give a little bit more leeway to the vets and a little bit more that I want from the younger guys.
And here's the thing. Chris Schenke comes in and says, why are we mad Star is there? Isn't there, but we're okay that Diggs is not. Why? Because Stephon Diggs did his job last year.
Yeah.
Like Stephon Diggs came out and led the NFL in receptions and yards last year. Vernon Butler underperformed his contract. Mario Addison underperformed his contract.
Yeah.
Star Lotulelei didn't play. Jerry Hughes might be the one guy I'd be willing to give a pass, but when it's in combination with those other three, that irks me. Like, and I'm completely with you, Kendall. Like, I understand they're veterans. I understand that these OTAs maybe aren't as big of a deal as we're making them out to be. But as a fan, as a homer, as a guy who wants his team to go to the Super Bowl,
of course,
that overpaid defensive line not showing up to OTAs gonna tick me off a little bit.
So John comes in with a super chat. Thanks, John. He goes, let's get to the issue. Visor with the white face mask. Josh Allen was down unstoppable Voltron, and we were going 17-0, 20-0 after Super Bowl. Question, can Josh go non-visor and then add visor at half if we are down? I mean, he said when Big Cat called him live that he was not going to be – the odds are that he's not wearing the visor in games. It was more of a practice thing, and that he sees a little better without it during games. So as cool as it looks, it sounds like he's going to be going no visor. But it is nice to see that combination with him wearing the visor and him wearing shorts together, which is nice. As far as me and Star is concerned, I kind of come out on the side of – it would have been nice if he was there. He does know the Bills really can't cut him. I mean, like they didn't address one tech in the draft, and it will cost them more to cut him than it will to keep him. So he doesn't really have necessarily a ton of incentive to go to the voluntary workouts. When it comes to training camp, if we see that he's maybe coming in out of it's going to be hard to tell if he's out of shape, to be honest with you, but we will see. I kind of understand where Steve's coming from though. Like the line did underperform last year, and you have the young guys in there like who are hungry and wanting to get it done. And if we had drafted a pure one tech, maybe things would have been different. Maybe Star would have shown up, but he kind of has the leverage, honestly, in this situation. So we will see. Richard says Butler needs to be cut anyway. He gets pushed as much as Brian Winters. I mean, that's a whole other discussion. But
here is the upside to this, right? The longer Star Lotulelei stays away from an NFL training facility, maybe the bigger and fatter he gets, and like he could be golfing. He could be engulfing six offensive linemen by the time he gets to training camp. We don't know. So I mean, maybe if we're looking for the bright side.
Yeah, I mean, Chris saying he's getting back to the point of it's being voluntary. They'll prove the worth when it actually matters. It's basically a workout session, and I understand that. And most of the guys did show, which was great. There was always going to be some guys that don't like. Okay, so that's Star not showing up. Now let's talk about a guy who is in camp and a guy who specifically we have high hopes for this season, and who McDermott specifically commented on, and that's AJ Epenesa. We know the Bills drafted Rousseau and Basham, but Epenesa, McDermott said, I quote, "He's in great shape right now. He looks as good as I've ever seen him look," and went on to further praise him. Quick recap of Epenesa last year: 14 games, played 1 sack, 3 tackles for loss, played in 291 snaps, about 27% of the snaps on defense. However, this is an interesting note about his splits last year. From weeks 2 to 10, he only played 110 snaps, which was just under 14 snaps per game. From weeks 12 through 17, he played 181 snaps, which is about 25 snaps per game, and even or 30 snaps per game, excuse me. And even if you exclude week 17, which is where he played the most, and we know the Bills, played mostly their backups, he's still under just 25 snaps per game in that final stretch of the season. So clearly in the second half of the season, he's a guy that the coaching staff trusted more and more. And now he's getting praise from Sean McDermott in OTAs during the press conferences, even after the Bills went out and drafted Rousseau and Basham. So, Kendall, I'll start with you. AJ Epenesa this year, is he the breakout candidate on the defensive line that we should be talking about, even though the Bills did draft Rousseau and Basham?
Yeah, I think personally, I think it's neck and neck between him and Basham. I think because people saw us take 2 edge rushers, people are very quick to write off Epenesa and be like, oh, they didn't like what they got from Epenesa. They're moving on. They're moving on from the old guys and Epenesa, all that stuff. I just think it's over evaluation from the fan base. McDermott likes to rotate. He always talks about how he likes to rotate the defensive line and always have fresh legs, have more guys that are available than not. I mean, we saw them stash Trent Murphy as a healthy scratch so many times because they like to have that many guys at the position. I just think it's foolish to think of Epenesa and write him off because he started off so slowly as a second-round draft pick. We're probably going to have to get used to that same kind of curve with Rousseau. We're going to have to accept that he's probably going to have a slow start, but he's going to rise quickly come, I don't know, week 10 or whatever that week mark that you put down in his snap drop or his snap rise. I just think Epenesa has as good of a chance as anyone in that edge room to break out this year. And I mean, the fact that McDermott says he was like on the facility, like pretty much every day, except for the few, weeks or days that he went to go visit his family, like that tells me everything we should need to know as a fan base. Like this dude is locked in. 8 to 10 sacks from Epenesa on a rotational defensive line is probably a little bit hopeful, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think he could absolutely do that, but it's going to depend on snap count.
I mean, if you look at that defensive line too, Gregory Rousseau is going to be a length and strength left end. Carlos Basham, same thing. He's going to be a power left end like Shaq Lawson. So what does that leave AJ Epenesa? If you look at AJ Epenesa's tape at Iowa and you look at pictures of AJ Epenesa now, you wouldn't think they were the same people. No. He shedded too much weight. He had to put some weight back on. AJ Epenesa is no longer that length and strength left end. He's not what Boogie Basham's going to be. He's not what Gregory Rousseau is going to be. He's no longer a guy who's going to kick inside on passing downs to 3-tag. The dude is bona fide going to be the successor to Jerry Hughes. He is going to be rotating with Jerry Hughes on that right side while guys like Obata and Rousseau and Basham work that left end. Daryl Johnson work that left end. To me, he looks purely like a right end. So I don't think drafting those two guys, like you said, Kendall, had any implication on AJ Epenesa whatsoever. I do think 8 to 10 sacks is going to be a little hard to get because I mentioned this on a previous show. I think you're going to see AJ Epenesa early on first and second down. And I think you're going to see Jerry Hughes maybe even take on a backup role, even if he might start the game and come in on those obvious passing downs.
Yeah.
So Jerry Hughes is going to get those sack situations. And even if AJ Epenesa's sack number is low this year, eventually when Jerry Hughes gets out of here, AJ Epenesa will get that more pristine position in the rotation to rack up those sacks. So I'm not worried about AJ Epenesa. I'm going to be super patient with him through at least year 3.
I agree. And I think that you look at how the draft played out and what it kind of indirectly might tell you about what their plans were for AJ Epenesa from the start, when the Bills are sitting there at 30 and 3 edge rushers go in a row, and the guy they pick is the length and strength guy in Rousseau, when you have guys like Oweh and Tryon get picked right after that. If they were interested in Oweh and Tryon, that may have told you something about what they thought AJ Epenesa was going to be, and they maybe would have said, if we go for a guy like Oweh or Tryon, then AJ Epenesa will be the length and strength guy. And it turns out they went the other route and went with the length and strength guys, both in the draft and in Rousseau and Basham. So that does at least indirectly kind of hint to me that you're right, Steve, that Epenesa may be the heir apparent to Jerry Hughes in that more, I don't want to call him bendy because he's not, but in that more of like the right end sort of speed rusher type guy. And like you said, he definitely went down too much, but if he can kind of find that happy medium in his weight, I think we're going to be in good shape. I mean, I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, man, like between Epenesa, Rousseau, and Basham, like this could be like a really nice trio of defensive ends we have here for a while. So
and Truth to Hearts comes in and says, how is Epenesa not a length and strength guy anymore? He didn't get shorter, and losing weight doesn't mean you get weaker. You can lose 50 pounds and get stronger. That's true. But if you look at AJ Epenesa, who's probably now 6'5", probably 260 to 270, maybe 275 max, you're no longer going to confuse AJ Epenesa with a guy who's going to kick inside on passing downs. F.A. Obata is a guy who could play 3-tech. Carlos Basham is a guy who could play 3-tech. Gregory Rousseau is a guy who could play 3-tech. One of the knocks on the Bills draft class from guys like Kevin Garrard, an outsider, is the Bills drafted a bunch of 5-techs, a bunch of 3-4 defensive ends. So AJ Epenesa, to me, when you look at him physically, you can't compare him with those guys anymore. Like, he doesn't look like that kind of football player anymore. Maybe I'm wrong, but at least by physical appearance, he just doesn't look like that player anymore.
I think
guy who's going to be on that right side, doing that speed rushing type of stuff.
Yeah, you're definitely on the right path. I don't know if he's like as far as to say he's the speed rusher, he's the bendy guy. Yeah. But I think you're right. Like he's more on the spectrum where he's moving closer to the Jerry Hughes type of role, where before he was leaning on that spectrum towards length and strength. Now he's a lot more central. I think that's the thing. And he might be leaning towards bendy, but he's a lot more central than he ever was. He was always leaning towards length and strength.
Aaron Schobel-esque? Anyone? Aaron Schobel-esque?
Right. Yeah.
Could be. I think he's more of a Chris Kelsey size, but Kelsey was pretty tall. Kelsey was pretty tall.
Don't say that word.
Or is he more of a Ryan Denny?
Ryan Denny.
Don't put Kelsey Denny juju on that man.
Okay, all right.
Don't put drought juju on them.
Schobel was legit, though. Schobel was legit.
Schobel was legit.
We got
really
SDF coming in with a good comment.
I know. I know Ryan was joking with that, but sorry, I'll go back to that one.
Yeah, you just said he had a lot more speed to power moves by the end of the year, and that was no coincidence. And I think that's right, because he sort of, I think he found a weight that was good for him, and he sort of he's starting to fill into that role, it looks like. So just don't call him Justin Bannon. Hey, Justin Bannon had a pretty decent career in Baltimore, but he was a defensive tackle.
All right. Yep. All right. So
you guys talk about Cody Ford yet? Because I see Cody Ford.
No, we're about to come up on the rest of the general topics from OTA, so it's kind of an open forum here. So I did want to just hit quickly on Cody Ford and Zach Moss, who obviously have been in Buffalo since the offseason began. They're rehabbing from injuries. They've done a phenomenal job. So that's per McDermott. He says, and I quote, "The discipline, the commitment, the rehab, especially the lengthy rehab like Cody's had to go through. And Zach, that takes a special person to be able to do that." Now, does this mean that maybe Cody Ford is starting to realize that his job is maybe not necessarily guaranteed? He's been in Buffalo, we know that, and McDermott has shown praise for how he's rehabbed. So is this Cody Ford's time to shine now, I guess is my question. Steve, let's start with you on the Cody Ford piece.
It almost seems to me like Cody Ford's going to get about 2 weeks at training camp, and if he can't show the coaches what he's got in about 2 weeks at training camp, I think you're going to see Forrest Lamp inserted. But I think the reason why they're resting Cody Ford, obviously with those injuries and stuff, and they're not trying to rush him back or anything like that, is they want this guy ready for training camp, and he's got a lot to prove when they get to training camp. But I mean, was it Brandon Beane or Sean McDermott who made all those comments and all those excuses for him? Like, listen, he's been playing injured his entire time here. He was playing at right tackle, then we moved him around. So to me, he's probably going to be the left guard from day one of training camp. And my guess is the Buffalo Bills will give him about 2-3 weeks to solidify his spot there. And if he doesn't do it, I think it's going to be Forrest Lamp versus Ike Butker for that position. And Cody Ford could find himself on the trade block or on the cutting block. But I think at the end of the day, Cody Ford does eventually win that position at left guard. But yeah, not definitely I posted Matthew Fairburn's, I posted his commentary. Like I just Cliff noted it, summarized it on the Buffalo Fanatics Twitter handle. And of like the 30 comments, I'd say 95% of them was, "Oh, Cody Ford on the sideline, surprise, surprise." Fans are getting fed up. The
Yes.
fans are getting fed up.
I mean, Rico, we know, he's over it. He's over Cody Ford at this point. Although he did maybe get a little bit more of a soft spot after seeing your thread, Kendall, the other week on Ford. He did say nice thread, but he didn't say
much past that.
He didn't say nothing.
Here's a question for you guys. The NFL has already come out and said that penalty on Cody Ford in the Houston game shouldn't have been called.
Right.
If that penalty in the Houston game wasn't called on Cody Ford, are we having a different conversation right now? Are fans having a different conversation? Is there a different perspective around Cody Ford if that penalty wasn't a penalty and Josh Allen picked up that first down?
For me, no, because I don't think people who watch a lot of football and our viewers are very knowledgeable would look at that and say that is something that made or broke Cody Ford's career to this point. Like, the block was not illegal. I mean, it was at the time technically by the rules, I guess, whatever. We're not going to get into that, but like, I don't necessarily think that like nosedived him into like getting injured and like having like not playing. Like, to me, I don't see that as being like a pivotal moment necessarily for him. It was a pivotal moment for the team because we ended up losing the game, but it was nothing like he did necessarily wrong that like would have spiraled his career out of control. So I would say no. I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just one play. I honestly want to touch more on what Judge you said earlier about McDermott. It was either McDermott or Bean. I don't know which.
I think it was Bean.
It sounds like Bean.
So if it was Bean, that's going to drive my point home even more. They're going to give this guy as many excuses as possible because he's someone that they labeled as their guy. They went and traded up for. I know they only moved up like less than 10 spots or whatever in the second round to grab him.
2 spots, I think.
Yeah, they're gonna do everything they can to make themselves look good in that situation and be like, yeah, he's been injured. We've been playing him out of position. They're going to do everything they can to kind of like throw their mistake under the rug. And we don't know if it's a mistake yet, but they're going to do everything they can for right now to cover their asses and make it seem like Ford still has a chance. And he really does. He does still have a chance. But I think we need to take those comments, especially coming from someone that literally drafted and invested in this guy. We need to take that with a grain of salt.
And I think in order for the Bills to get their run game going without making any significant schematic shifts, like going to 12 personnel or bringing back a fullback or whatever, like if the Bills want to keep doing what they're doing on offense, but improve the running game, I think Cody Ford is the key to that, right? Like
Agreed.
that bigger, bulkier guy, giving a little bit more.
He looked a little bulky in those pictures. I'm not gonna lie.
A little heavier set guy.
Heavier.
next to Mitch Morse, because Ike Bucker is the kind of guy who. Pretty solid pass protector, but gets pushed around a little bit in the run game. So he definitely brings a more sturdy presence to the interior of that offensive line.
Yeah, in my thread, he actually looked really good on the few clips that he had pulling, and his pass set looks were the ones where it was really causing some concern. Those lateral movement skills, that's where I have some gripes with him, but Bobby always coming in from the top rope.
Bobby versus the world. That was the new number one banter. Here's a good comment from Elliot. Regardless of who the final starting 5 are, love the depth assembled by the front office. Yeah. Like it's younger depth now, which is nice, right? Yeah. Before it was like Ty and Secchi kind of as the swing tackle. It was, Feliciano was like, was he a starter? Was he not a starter? You had Winters in the mix, who wasn't old by any means, but like they really have infused a lot of youth on the line, and their free agent signings that they made, namely Forrest Lamp, is still fairly young. Let's talk about it. Who are your starting 5 predictions for week 1? I mean, look, I've said this sort of on the show before, and I'll stick with it for now. I think it's going to be Dawkins, Ford, Morse, Feliciano, Williams as the starting 5. And I honestly think that I really do think that the only spot in question is left guard. I don't see Spencer Bound challenging for right tackle immediately. I don't see the Bills toying with moving Darrell Williams inside immediately. I think starting week 1, it's going to be Dawkins, Ford, Morse, Feliciano, and Williams. And the only kind of carousel I would say would be the left guard spot, but that's what I'll go with for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got the same as you. I got the same as Elliot. Dawkins, Ford, Morse, Feliciano Williams.
Yeah, I'm sticking chalk as well. I think the only thing, like you said, is that left guard position. I think people are sleeping on Butker a little bit too much. I mean, it's obvious that they wanted to upgrade that position, but he was very serviceable in his replacement last year, coming in for Ford, and really anyone at those guard positions. He did a great job there. So I think people are sleeping on him just a little, but yeah, that's the only spot I would say is up for grabs.
Richard's getting that kingpin stamp of approval.
He's trying to bait Kingpin. I think he's trying to get him. He's trying to get him to come out of the comments.
There's
He was in
nothing
here
wrong with
earlier.
that.
I don't think he's in here anymore. But
Don't sleep on Jack Anderson either. Like, so another thing that I've noticed, one from watching, what was it? Cover One had some clips of Bobby Johnson doing a coaching clinic. And Bobby Johnson was working with Ryan Bates, and the Athletic guys have had some conversations with Ryan Bates as well. Apparently, Ryan Bates wants to play center, and Ryan Bates thinks center is his position in the National Football League. So Ryan Bates, between the combination of that, the fact that the Senior Bowl, again, kudos to Cover One, they were the ones that reported it. The Bills told Jack Anderson they thought he had left, right, center flex, and then in his team photo, he was snapping a football.
Right.
Between between Ryan Bates' coaching clinic video and wanting to play center, and between Jack Anderson snapping a football in his team photograph, I think that Ryan Bates and Jack Anderson could be vying for being the 2022 starter at center for the Buffalo Bills.
Right.
I think that Mitch Morse is a guy who could see his way out after this season, and one of those two guys could be a surprise starter. One of those guys where like you're not happy about it when the season starts, but by the end of the season, the end of the 2022 season, one of those two becomes an established center in this league.
But it also allows you for 2021, if one of them sort of shows themselves well to be the backup, you don't have to stress about having Feliciano in there at right guard, right? Like you don't have to worry about like, oh, if something happens to Morse, now we have to slide Feliciano over to center. Then what are we going to do at right guard? Are we going to put Butker in there? Like, what are we going to, if that's the case and Morse does, for some reason need a substitute during the season, maybe Bates just slides in there at center and you don't have to reshuffle any of the rest of the line for 2021. And then, like you said, Steve, in 2022, who knows what the future may hold for Mitch Morse, but it's fewer, mixing and matching going on the line, which I do like. So that would be nice as well.
Somebody brought up earlier, and I apologize if you want to re-put it on the screen, I will. I'll put it up on the thing, but someone said Dawson Knox finally got the invitation to tight end U. Did you guys see that Dawson Knox finally got that? Listen, like he's going to that tight end U that like George Kittle and them are running, and it's right in his backyard, Nashville, Tennessee. I believe that's where Dawson Knox lives. I see him posting a lot on Instagram in Nashville, so I just assume he lives there. How him and Casey Reed aren't best friends yet, I have no idea. But between Dawson Knox going to tight end U and having all his physical upside, and Jacob Hollister having a relationship with Josh Allen, impressing people with like his shiftiness and his quickness at the OTAs so far, I'm starting to think the Buffalo Bills offense, which really isn't tight end dependent, they've got their two guys, right? Like it seems like we've got our two guys, barring an injury. Those two combined with Tommy Sweeney's upside coming back is that guy Lee Smith that he's going to take under his wings and turn into the greatest TE3 of all time. I'm less and less worried about our tight end room and less and less longing for a Zach Ertz trade as the days go by. What do you guys think?
I'm down. I don't want Zach Ertz trade. I'm with you, Steve. I think that the tight end room, I feel like since we started doing our show together, has been one of those where like, man, it's just like not that fun to talk about, yet we like had spent more time on it than probably any other position group for some reason. And I actually, out of the last 2-3 years, this has been my favorite tight end group that they've had, assuming Sweeney is back and kind of over the health problems. I hope he is. I really like Hollister as an addition to the room. And obviously now with Knox going to his third year, you have a little bit more higher hopes. And going to tight end U is obviously a nice thing to have. And I just think Hollister is a bit of an upgrade over a guy like Croft, who I liked Tyler Croft But it was always the conversation of like, okay, is it Jason Kroom or Lee Smith? Like, who's that?
Right.
Who's that other tight end? Like, I like the idea of having Knox, Hollister, and Sweeney as your 3 tight ends. Like, Gilliam probably going to make the team. He made it last year. I don't know. That's a separate discussion, but what position he is. But those 3, I like that. And I mean, Hollister, dude, in those pictures from OTAs, he looks jacked. That dude looks jacked.
Well, that's the thing too. Like, first thing I did when we signed Jacob Hollister was I YouTubed him, and there's like a 10-minute video for all the. I know the Bills Mafia babes were swooning over Jacob Hollister's biceps today. Bills Mafia babes, if you are watching, head on over to YouTube. There's a video of like
you might have to change your profile pic.
There's a video of Jacob Hollister like working out and then going for a swim shirtless, like in some kind of lake. Man's got like a fucking 23 pack. Like he's got some abs too. So Bills Mafia babes, hey, check it out on the YouTube. I talk about like shirtless men way too much.
A little bit. It's okay. Chris Sims does it too. He loves the male form. So
Do
you're
you
not too
need
far off.
You might have to do like in your profile pic, you might have to slice it up into a pie and have like 4 different guys' pecs.
How about
in
my
the picture.
banner? My banner is just like Chippendales,
like a row of pecs.
like
Yes.
like Chippendales, but with like Devin Singletary and Jacob Hollister just photoshopped onto there.
I
If
could
someone
make
could
that for you.
Photoshop that for me.
I could make that for you. Like
Phil's got his next project.
Let's do it. That'll be my banner.
Wow.
It's gonna be too much.
There's actually a couple of really good points in the comment section going back to the offensive line. Chris Jenke, he said he knew last year that Ryan Bates was going to make this team when they talked about that the offensive lineman could be on the active roster and you get the extra player. He's the perfect. He could play legitimately. I'm not saying he do it well, but he could play left tackle, left guard, center, right guard, right tackle. He could play all 5 positions.
Yep.
Kind of a Jeremiah Searles type, who you know that Sean McDermott liked from his time in Carolina, and Brandon Bean liked. But I think he's got a little bit higher an upside than just that. Like that's his floor. I think Ryan Bates might have a higher ceiling than that, but if he doesn't, that's fine.
We liked Bates.
Yeah.
I mean, in the pre-draft process, we were like, "Hey, this guy could be like a late rounder UDF." And then I think it was the Eagles. The Eagles drafted him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or the Eagles signed him, and then they cut him, and we got him. Yeah, I liked him.
Who did we trade to Philly for that? Who did we trade? Who was it? Someone in the comment section will know. We traded a play. It was a player for player.
Chris will know. Chris will know.
It was a player for player swap. I think we got the better end of that deal. But Jack Norton also comes in and says, I went to high school with Cyrus Tuatelli. Dude was a beast back then, too. I could see him making the team in more of a depth role, especially as he moves to guard. And this is the interesting point. Tuatelli played tackle at Fresno State. Eli Harold, there we go. Yeah, we won that trade. Tuatelli played tackle at Fresno, but a lot of people projected him inside to guard and thought he could be like a nice practice squad prospect as a guard. If you look at the Buffalo Bills depth chart, though, here's the thing. BuffaloBills.com lists him as a guard. But if you actually look at their depth chart, it is Dion Dawkins, Darrell Williams, Tommy Doyle, Spencer Brown, Bobby Hart. That's it, unless you want to count Ryan Bates as a tackle. They have 5 tackles. So unless Forrest Lamp is like second team left tackle, or unless Ryan Bates is third team right tackle, we don't even have enough tackles to field 3 teams in practice. So as much as upside as Tuatelli might have as a guard, he might be forced to play tackle early on in his career in training camp. That might push him more towards a practice squad role than it would be maybe putting him in the best position to make the active roster. But I like Tuatelli's upside.
I mean, you're right about that, unless, God forbid, Bobby Hart somehow finds his way, which won't happen. But anyway, yes, you do need to add that to your bio.
I was going to post that.
You probably need to lead with that, I think. Trek reviewer says, thinks the O-line will look like this: Dawkins, Mongo, Anderson, Butker, Williams, Brown coming in short yardage, Mitch Morse Ford to Cleveland for a high pick they're not going to trade us JOK, but
hey, that is a ballsy statement, though. I mean, I don't think that Mitch Morse is heading out this year just because the way they restructured his deal, it doesn't make sense to cut him or trade him because you're going to be eating a lot of dead cap. Right. But a guy like him, even though he's got multiple years left on his deal, it makes sense to get out of that deal in 2022. So it might have made sense to get out of that deal if you wanted to before the restructure. It doesn't make sense after that restructure. I think that restructure really locked him in. I think it really locked him into the Bills roster in 2021.
Agreed.
Couple other quick notes on OTAs. McDermott says about the group of players that showed up, quote, they are in what I would consider fairly decent shape at this point. Not good enough, but we've got time between now and the season. I think the great part about the guys here is that we get the chance to see where they're at. So obviously conditioning wise, they're not exactly where they need to be, but again, it's only May. So for me, I'm not worried about that at all. It is nice, obviously, that the young guys are there. And Josh Allen is spinning the ball nicely from what we can tell in shorts, as he always does, rocking that visor. And one of the notes that came out from Josh was that he is specifically working on his in-breaking routes, whereas, honestly, I thought he was pretty good at those last year. So if he's going to get better at those this year, I think the more I think about it, it's more around like this guy is driven, right? I mean, he's trying to improve incremental little things about his game that he's already quite good at. And I think that that's got to come as a positive. Any other last takeaways from OTAs to this point from either of you guys before we get into Q&A?
I think that Josh Allen thing, the press conference on the in-breaking routes, I love that it was about, him always trying to improve. I agree with you that I thought he was already pretty good at in-breaking routes. I think what he was trying to specifically focus on was allowing the wide receiver to catch the ball naturally in their motion so they don't have to stop and they're already in their yak. I think that's mostly what he's focusing on, trying to pinpoint that accuracy to the point where the wide receiver doesn't have to slow down or change their direction. But I think underrated, people aren't talking about this. Everyone's talking about the in-breaking routes. He said throwing to his left. I think that's what the big step for Josh Allen is going to be this year, because my God, at the end of last year, every commentator was talking about how great Josh Allen is improvising, rolling out to his right. And there's a real chance that defenses in the NFL are going to try and take that away from him. They're going to stack coverages on the right side of the field. They're going to run cover 6 where they have 2 guys dropping deep on the right and only 1 dropping deep on the left. Things like that to force him to throw it to the left side. And I've already started breaking down film a little bit on this tendency. He's obviously, we know how good he is rolling out to the right and making those throws on the run. He's shown he has a little bit of inaccuracy when it comes to rolling out on the left and making those throws. So I think that's where he needs to improve in 2021. And the sky's the limit for this team. If he can combat the counter from those defenses, sky's the limit.
I got a question for you, Kendall, as you're doing the film analysis, because I want to know kind of what the difference between how Josh looked improvising and rolling out to his left and throwing to his left versus just drop back, plant and throwing to his left. Because I thought just dropping back and throwing to his left, he was pretty good.
Exactly.
So maybe it's more on the running and rolling out to the left is where he struggled. I'd be very curious to see.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know which point he was talking about, but that's how I interpreted it as well. Till I interpreted it more as the rolling out to the left, throwing on the run to the left. I think he's fine when it comes to just standing in the pocket and throwing to the left. We saw this with Lamar Jackson too. After his year 1, MVP, his MVP performance, the next year, everything he was talking about was, I got to get better throwing to my left. I'm really good at throwing to the right. It's easy. It's right in front of me, but throwing to my left is a lot harder. So clearly this is something that younger quarterbacks have to work on in general. So he's probably talking about both, but as I interpret it, it's the rollout. It's the throwing on the run to the left.
And we got a couple of comments here that I really like. One from Richard Rush. He says, Allen won't stop till he's the best ever and has multiple Super Bowl wins. And then someone else came in and said,
hopefully they're with the Bills.
Where is it?
Don't say that. Don't do that.
So Bills Mafia STF said, you can tell Josh Allen has that MJ dog in him as a competitor. In my opinion, it's why he.
It's that meme, man. And I took it personally. Yeah. And every person that's doubted him along the way.
Yeah. You cannot coach with Josh Allen. You cannot coach into a player what Josh Allen has. It comes from the soul system.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, a couple of years ago in the draft, I think me, just like most people, and there are some people who weren't, were I was pro Josh Rosen, and I'm like, well, this whole like he doesn't have a love for football, he cares about other things. I'm like, that's such hogwash. Like that's such BS. Like that's such like old football guy rhetoric. Like, oh, like he's smart and has other endeavors and thinks for himself and wants to do things after football. Like I had all these things where I'm like, these takes are awful. Like I thought these takes were awful, but there's something to it. And I'm not saying Josh Rosen didn't have those things. Maybe the guys were right, but if you're not in the room interviewing these quarterbacks before the draft, there's only so much tape you can watch. There's only so many press conferences you can listen to understand like what makes a dude tick. And that's where these scouts and that's where these GMs have the advantage, where they literally get to understand like how these dudes are wired in a way that like we can't. And so I was actually a Lamar guy. I wanted Lamar, but yeah, like, kudos to the Bills because they understood how wired he was, and they've tapped into. They haven't even tapped into all that potential yet. So
nope.
Here's
all right.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
we got another.
Here's
another thing I want to get into. This is a good one. So speaking of wired a certain way, you know, Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady are kind of wired that way as well. And this July, Tom Brady is teaming with Phil Mickelson to take on Aaron Rodgers and Bryson Douche Shambo, as I like to call him, because I'm Team Brooks Koepka. I think the winner of Brady Mickelson, Douche Shambo, Aaron Rodgers should take on Brooks Koepka and Josh Allen.
Josh Allen's a pretty good golfer by the sound of it. I think he needs to be in the next one.
I want to see Josh Allen and Brooks Koepka take on Tom Brady and Phil Mickelson, or Aaron Rodgers and Bryson DeChambeau. I don't get one of the two, but Brooks Koepka and Josh Allen, that's a pairing right there.
That's a lot of muscle in that
I was
pairing.
just gonna say
that would be sweet. We need to maybe start that movement to get Josh Allen involved in the match. I like that idea a lot because I enjoy watching those. It's nice seeing amateurs on TV. Like, makes me feel a little better about myself. But so I like that. And I will say this, I don't really like Bryson or Brooks, but the way the Brooks thing recently has kind of made me like Bryson a little more. I still don't like him that much, but yeah. Anyway, all right, let's get into the Q&A. I'm going to start with one of the hot topics of the week from Elliot. How about Diggs saying he wants 5 rings and he has the mindset? I'm going to paraphrase, but he said something about, he's like, I feel I'm a champion, or I have the mindset of a champion, or something to that effect. What do you guys think? Is this just player being confident, or do you, because for when I hear Stephon Diggs say something like that, I think he like truly believes it. Like, he truly believes he's going to get 5 Super Bowl rings. Yeah,
I think Diggs is a little delusional in his own confidence. However, I want that confidence. Like, I need that confidence. It's amazing to see him say that because, you know, you think about all the drought years and stuff like that. You don't have guys coming out talking about team success. They're all just kind of like me. You know, guys kind of just doing it for themselves. And then as the tail end of the drought, you know, as we started to climb out of it, you started to see guys really commit to the team. Like, honestly, during like the Fitzpatrick years, you really start to see the team movement coming into things. And that's where this confidence is stemming from. You can see, like, Diggs didn't talk like this when he was with the Vikings because he didn't have a platform or a voice with that team. He was just kind of like that young dude trying to make a name for himself. Now that he's with the Bills, like, he has made his name. Like, he's established because of this prior season. And he has every right to be that delusional in his confidence. But, man, like, the tandem, Josh and Diggs, like, why not? Why not 5 Super Bowls? It's possible. They're both, Diggs is 27, right? Yeah. Julio's 32. That's 5 years from 27. Like, why not?
In order to make up for 4 straight losses, we're going to win 5 in a row. But honestly, like, in all honesty, we had this conversation last year when we traded for Stephon Diggs and signed Josh Norman. I said I loved it because we brought in 2 players on each side of the ball who have been there, done that. They talk the talk, they walk the walk, and have that MJ-like mentality where they're there's the standard, and then there's just constantly trying to get above that standard. Like
Yep.
they're never complacent. They never plateau. They're always trying to get better. So you want, but what I've realized with Josh Norman and Stephon Diggs, with Josh Norman and Stephon Diggs is you want the players with that confidence. You want the players with that mentality, but you also need the guy who can back it up with this play on the field.
Yep.
Josh Norman could no longer physically back it up like he did when he was in Carolina in 2015, and he helped take that team to the Super Bowl. Stephon Diggs is that kind of player. Not only can he talk the walk, he can walk the walk. And I think Super Bowl caliber teams need at least one player like that. And the Buffalo Bills have that in Stephon Diggs, and honestly, maybe more quiet in terms of talking to the media, but talking on the field, it seems like they have one in Josh Allen too. I'd like to see a little bit more of this cockiness come from a player like Tremaine Edmonds, who's got all those physical attributes too. So I look forward to hopefully one day Tremaine Edmonds being comfortable enough this defense to start barking like, a Josh Allen or a Stephon Diggs.
I was going to say the key word is comfortability with Edmonds. You can tell like that's what's holding him back. He's like waiting for the moment that it clicks for him on the field. And then he's like, okay, now I talk my shit.
Diggs to me, you need a guy who's not afraid to like shoot for the moon. Right. And like Steve said, a guy that's good enough to back it up with his play on the field, but you need players, you need your leaders on the team to not be afraid to say like, we need to win a Super Bowl or we expect to win a Super Bowl. It's no longer, we need to focus on, this division or we need to win. Like it's fine for the coaches to say one game at a time, but at the end of the day, like you need players who are confident to say like, we're going to go win a Super Bowl. Because if you don't have guys in the locker room who believe they can win, you're probably not going to win. I mean, I know it's completely different and they're at the highest level of the NFL, but like any team sport I was ever on, high school, whatever, it was like, if the guys in the locker room or in the dugout or whatever, because I played baseball, like if we didn't think we were going to win, why are we even there? Right. Yeah. So I think that coming from arguably your best player outside of Josh Allen, arguably could be your best player. Like he could be better than Josh Allen, right? Like you can argue it's different positions, but
splitting
for him to say that to me, I like that because I want that. We talked about having an alpha receiver. Like this dude is an alpha receiver, and he is the guy that's going to lead this team with Josh Allen to that Super Bowl if, in fact, we can get it done.
Yeah. Someone mentioned Emmanuel Sanders too. Emmanuel Sanders got that same mindset. Like Emmanuel Sanders, another guy.
So does Beasley,
who's very confident in his abilities, is not afraid to talk the talk, and it looks like he can still walk the walk. Especially, it'll be nice to see him with a quarterback who can throw the ball more than 10 yards in the air. So it'll be really interesting to see him. And that's four guys on offense between Cole and between Stephon and Emmanuel and Josh Allen, who like these guys are those dogs, those MJ type of I took that personally. Those are the type of guys in this offense. We have a ton of those guys on offense, and it could make for a really exciting year. And it'll be really exciting to see if that can rub off on high ceiling guys like Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox, maybe, hopefully, one of the three running backs, whether it's Breda, Moss, Singletary, maybe even Antonio Williams. Like
I was gonna say, Devin kind of looks like he's starting to take things personally.
Yeah, he does,
which is great. Good for him. I mean, if that's what he needs, I mean, that's what we want to see out of Cody Ford too, right? With them bringing in Lamp and re-signing Butker back, drafting Jack. Like, we need to see that out of him. John Herring says if we're going to upgrade somewhere this year, do it on defense because there's still obviously a lot of talk about Julio and whatever, but like, and Ertz obviously is a topic of conversation still. But John makes a good point. If we're going to upgrade somewhere this year, do it on defense. And I just don't know, like, what are you going to do unless you're not likely going to bring in somebody on the defensive line after this point, after what you just drafted. And we've already discussed how difficult it's going to be cutting down that defensive line to 9 players. Now, if you get a stud, okay, fine. But like, where are you going to add? I guess, CB2 is still kind of the obvious option there. With guys like Sherman still available, like like, is that what you're talking about, John? If you're going to upgrade, like, or are you talking about something bigger than that, like a bigger move than that? Because if the Bills were going to make a bigger move like that, I think they would have already done it.
Yeah.
So I think we're set now, probably at least until we start getting into the season and we start approaching that trade deadline.
And John Herring says one tech, like there could be maybe a defensive tackle who gets cut as, you know, training camp moves along. Maybe you consider it, but again, Starlotolele will probably be there by training camp. Harrison Phillips going into, you know, year 4. You know, Vernon Butler, you're kind of stuck with him from a cap perspective. Justin Zimmer looks like he is good. Then you have a whole bunch of guys who can rotate inside. So there's just so much depth at that position. I don't know how willing they would be to go out. Like the only guy on that defensive line I look at and I'm like, we got to replace this dude, to me, is Starlotolele, but we're stuck with him. So it's just cross your fingers and hope for the best. Because there are guys, Sheldon Richardson, Snacks Harrison, Jarrell Casey. There are dudes out there, and the Bills haven't touched them yet for a reason. It seems like
Atkins, Geno Atkins is out there.
Comfortable and confident with what they got there.
Yeah, I think that goes for both sides of the ball. It seems like Bean does want to keep that flexibility for in season for a scenario like last year when Le'Veon Bell gets cut out of nowhere, and you're just like, oh, okay, let's see if we can kick the tires on this and see if we can make a move for him. It seems like Bean's not really trying to, you know, rock the ship too much right now. He likes what he has, and he's just going to wait to see if something falls into his lap so he has that flexibility to go grab that, whatever it may be.
And if Star surprisingly retires, because someone said
Randy said that. Yeah, Randy.
I think you still have to eat some of that money. Like
you do.
I think it affects your cap still. I don't know the exact ramifications of it, but it still affects your cap even if they retire, because that money was guaranteed. I think they have to go through like a legal process to get that money back, but I still think it counts against their cap.
So Jeff comes in and says, Jeff Danger, I like that name, by the way. Jeff Danger, nice. I could see Zimmer over Phillips. Zimmer looks like a beast in the picks. He does. I think, you know, Kendall, you and I talked about this and trying to figure out this defensive line on the last show. You know, the Bills are likely going to keep 5 defensive ends and 4 defensive tackles. Like, it would be a little bit of a surprise to me if they kept 6 edge guys and only 3 defensive tackles. So you talk about the defensive tackle position, and you got Oliver is a lock, Star, unless he retires, is a lock, and then you've basically got two spots for 3 or 4 guys, right? You got Butler, Phillips, Zimmer, and then if you want to throw in like what's his name?
Yeah, Brandon Bryant.
Like he's probably not going to make the team. So really,
Hester guy too,
right? Yep, Trayvon Hester.
Yep, as well. So really, though, 2 spots are available, likely for the 3 of Zimmer, Phillips, and Butler, right? That's most likely what it's going to come down to. And I think, Kendall, you had pointed out on the last show that cutting Butler really doesn't do a whole lot of
I'll pull it
for
up
you at this point. So it could be Zimmer and Phillips fighting for that last spot, or they could say screw it and they might cut Butler anyway. But I mean, Zimmer's a cult favorite, right? He's a fan favorite, but so is Harrison Phillips. So it's going to be interesting to see if it's like the Phillips camp versus the Zimmer camp. I also don't know that they necessarily play the same position. So, I mean, Phillips could be more of the direct backup to Star, whereas Zimmer could be more of the direct backup to Oliver, and Butler's kind of like more of a 3
he's floating in the middle. Yeah. So for Vernon Butler, his dead cap for this year is $2 million, and his savings is $3.3 million. I'm personally in the camp where I think he's expendable with that kind of dead cap. If you're saving more than the dead cap offers, I think you're expendable. Obviously, it depends on what that dead cap figure is. I think $2 million is something we could eat, especially if you're getting $3.3 million back. That might actually mean, hey, maybe there's a move in free agency. I'm kind of with him. I don't know. Butler left so much to be desired last year, in my opinion. He got a lot of opportunities, so it clearly means the coaching staff likes him. But with those opportunities, he was just kind of underwhelming. So my money's on Zimmer and Phillips for those last 2 spots.
Here's something too, because we haven't talked. Did you guys touch on Julio at all?
Yeah, we did on the last
briefly.
show. We can bring it up again.
We brushed it off quickly.
And here's the thing too, because I'm on team brush off the Julio talk too. But I'm going to propose a trade, and I want you guys to tell me whether you would accept this trade if you were Buffalo, or you accept this trade if you were Atlanta. Gabe Davis and a first-round pick next year for Julio Jones. Would you make that?
I take that in a second. I take that in a second if I'm Atlanta. I don't do that if I'm Buffalo.
If I'm the Bills, hell no, absolutely not.
Because we were going back and forth with Rico in the comment section, or in the Buffalo Fanatics chat about it. To me, I think the best deal the Buffalo Bills could make is a 2022 first and Gabe Davis. So people in the comment section, let me know. My answer is no as well, but that's the only reasonable trade I could think of.
So my counter to this is the fact that Julio went on whatever that was, Undisputed, and said what he said. I'm out of Atlanta. Z-Bot touched on it yesterday. Atlanta just lost all of their leverage. If I'm Buffalo, I'm not offering anything more than a third rounder and a player you don't want to part with. I think that's as fair as it gets. You could go a second rounder and a player we could care less about shipping, but that's that tipping point for me. It's like, if we're giving a second rounder, it has to be a player that we don't want. And if it's a third rounder, it has to be a player that Atlanta really wants. That's that tipping point for me. Like at this point, a first is just out of the realm of possibility. I don't think they could get a first out of anyone.
Well, according to Diana Rossini from ESPN, and again, this could just be talk coming from Atlanta to try to make up for what Julio said on there on Fox Sports. Diana Rossini says they have an offer, first round pick. I've heard some people say Tennessee has the best offer on the table. Mm-hmm. I've heard other people say there's an NFC team that has offered a first round pick, but Atlanta is holding off to see if an AFC team will offer a first round pick.
Makes sense.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's Julio freaking Jones. Like, it's if you're gonna trade for a guy like that, it's gonna hurt. You're not gonna like Atlanta's not gonna take a third round pick and a player you don't care about. Like, it's going to sting. A first or a second round pick and a player you like Gabe Davis. Like,
so that's why I'm saying like a third in Davis. A third in Davis is as far as I would go, because Davis is someone like I don't want to part with as a Bills fan, but it's someone Atlanta would love to get. If it's a second in Davis, I can't do it. That's just where I stand. It's like Davis is too much to the future.
I agree with you, but like all I'm saying is, if
Julio.
you want a guy like Julio Jones, it's gonna hurt. Like,
of course,
it's gonna hurt.
Hey, if he ends up on the Bills, I'm not mad about it. I'm really not. Like, it's Julio freaking Jones. It's just like, it's just the cost thing. It's
remember another
thing about it.
Remember another blockbuster trade involving a receiver and the Atlanta Falcons, when the Atlanta Falcons sent us a first round pick for Peerless Price way back when.
Yeah, that's way back when.
Baby. I did a little throwback because the people at Buffalo Fanatics were dumb enough to put me in charge of their Twitter handle. I did a little throwback.
Don't say that.
I did a little throwback.
Bobby's the only one in here. He doesn't care.
I posted a little video or I reposted a little video from Bills Touchdown a Day of Peerless Price, and I said, is Peerless Price the most like one of the more underrated like players from Bills?
I love Peerless,
Bills
man.
Lore,
him and Molds together. Oh, they were so good.
Okay. That's when I became a Bills fan. The first game I really have recollection watching is the Doug Flutie rollout versus the Jaguars. That's like the first recollection I have as a Bills fan watching a game. After that, it was the Music City Miracle. So pretty much my fandom started with like the Music City Miracle onward. So like I had to watch a whole bunch of shit with Greg Williams, right? And then all of a sudden Drew Bledsoe comes in with Eric Molds, Peerless Price, and Josh Reed. That shit was fun. Like
Travis Henry at running back.
That was when I started too.
Willis McGahee, that winning streak they went on where they were just crushing teams.
McGahee was nasty.
And you had that Drew Bledsoe fake the thing and then
fourth down, throw back to McGahee. He had 4 touchdowns that game.
That was
4 rushing
so
touchdowns.
Fun. And then fucking Tommy Maddox and Willie Parker had to ruin it. But
you remember it was like Bledsoe's first year, and it was like an NFL record, I think, where the Bills went into overtime their first 3 games of the season. They lost to the Jets, they beat Minnesota, and then they beat Chicago, I believe, to start the season, if I recall correctly. So yeah, Peerless, man, soft spot for me for Peerless. I really liked him. Him and Travis Henry, both Tennessee guys. So there you go.
Travis Henry's in prison now.
Oh, Did not know that.
Boy.
Apparently, Justin Bannon killed someone.
Yeah, I saw Randy say that. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Here's an interesting take from Claude. Peerless was overrated. Lee was underrated. Peerless played on a stacked offense. I do think Lee was underrated. Lee played with JP. That 2006 was obviously his best year. But Lee, he was kind of more of like that deep threat guy. Like he did run other routes, but like, I mean, he wasn't like a true number one receiver, Lee Evans. Not that Peerless was, but he was like a little bit sturdier than Lee. Didn't have the speed Lee had, but I love Lee Evans. That was the first jersey I ever owned was Lee Evans. So don't take
Paul Posluszny. No, mine was Takeo Spikes. Then Paul Posluszny.
I think mine was McGahee.
Man, JP to Lee 2006 was special.
Yeah,
anyway, what do we want to do here? We want to take a few more questions. Let's see. Here's one from John. We are about to enter huge contracts for Josh and Edmonds. We're going to take on $11 million cap hit from Julio when we have the best wide receiver in the league already on the team. And that's kind of where I come out on it too. It's like you just signed Sanders for $6 million, and I know that shouldn't necessarily be your reason to not bring in Julio. You want to develop Gabriel Davis. You want to have something planned for the future when guys like Sanders and Cole Beasley are gone, and you're left really with Diggs and Davis, and then the unknowns of Hodgins and Stevenson obviously are there as well. But I think, and I had this argument with, I can't remember who it was, but like Julio wasn't gonna, I think it might have been Pierre. I was like, Julio was not gonna win you that AFC Championship game.
Right, it was,
year. Yeah, and it was like more stuff went wrong on the defensive side of the ball than did on the offense. Now, stuff went wrong on both sides of the ball, don't get me wrong, but like we couldn't stop the Chiefs for anything. So while I love the novelty maybe of adding Julio. I'm not even saying that's probably the wrong word to use because it's not a novelty, but I love the idea of adding Julio, but I just don't think the opportunity cost that it would take to get him is worth it. And I agree with John.
Yeah, I've been saying it like I've been framing it like this in my head. As much as I want Julio, I'm not willing to sell out for a Super Bowl in 2021 to make it harder to win a Super Bowl for the remaining years of Josh Allen in Buffalo. I'm not saying that adding Julio Jones makes it harder to win a Super Bowl past 2021. It just makes it harder to field a team that's really well-rounded because you have to pay a guy so much. Obviously, there are things that we can do cap-wise to mitigate that cost. But to me, everything Bean and McDermott are doing, it's to maximize that Super Bowl window. They want to be the next Patriots dynasty of the AFC East. We're going to be that team. But by making a move like that, when your team is already teed up in the way that it is to win in 2021, it's not to say that it's overkill and that it won't help. It's just how much are you willing to put into 2021 to lessen your chances for 2022, 2023, so on and so forth. Yeah, I think it would greatly increase our chances to win in 2021, but I'm not willing to forfeit those future years just for an increased chance, not even a guarantee of a Super Bowl in 2021. And that's where you lose me. Julio doesn't guarantee a Super Bowl. He does not. So that's where you lose me.
Harold comes in and says, who will lead the Bills in sacks this year? It's a popular question and a good one. We haven't really,
I think Jerry Hughes.
I think Jerry Hughes, and I think that dark horse. I mean, we talk about it could be Edo if Star's back.
Yeah, dark horse.
So,
I liked Judge your reasoning behind it, the third down specialist kind of thing from the older guys. I think that's a really nice way of contextualizing why Jerry Hughes will be the leader. Because from last year you're going to be like, how the hell is Jerry Hughes going to lead the team in sacks? But if you want to lay it out for him again, I think it's a great reasoning.
Yeah, I mean, like it was Bean or McDermott. One of them made the comment. I think it might have been.
Now that's a hot take right there.
I think it might have been Bean in the post draft presser was just like, listen, these young guys will help us keep guys like Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes fresh. So to me, that screams in the rotation. You're going to see guys like Addison or Epenesa and bash him on earlier downs, first and second down, when you're less likely to be able to pin your ears back.
Yeah.
And on those pass rushing situations, you're going to see the likes of Mario Addison and Jerry Hughes. I think there's a serious chance that if Mario Addison doesn't show up and show out at training camp, that Mario Addison ends up out the door in favor of a guy like Daryl Johnson or F.A. Obata, who's younger. So Jerry Hughes, the guy I think is guaranteed to make this football team. That in combination with the fact that he's going to get less snaps, but the snaps he does get are going to be in those pin your ear back situations. So I'm going to go with Jerry Hughes.
And this Cordero kind of builds on truth to Heart's comment where he said, "This is where you contradict yourself. Julio doesn't guarantee a Super Bowl, but draft picks do." I think he was talking to you, Kendall. And then Cordero says, "We have one of the best wideouts in the league, but do you want a Super Bowl? Yes or no? Send some picks in Epenesa for Julio. We struggled in the AFC Championship. More weapons can't hurt." We did struggle in the AFC Championship, but are you saying the reason we struggled was purely because we didn't have wide receivers? Like that's where you lose me a little bit, because there were a lot of things that went wrong in that AFC Championship game. And if you look at the season as a whole and what the Bills did on offense, I don't think wide receivers weren't the issue for the Bills last year, in my opinion.
That Chiefs game was lost because we couldn't get the ball back in Josh Allen's hands enough. And that's why, people go they look at the Bucs and they're like, oh, look at that star-studded offense. But they had a star-studded defense that got the ball back in Tom Brady's hands and took it out of Mahomes. So I just think we got to build this defense. We got to make this team two-sided. If we can get closer to that 2019 Buffalo defense and retain that 2020 Buffalo offense, this team is unstoppable. If we have a top half of the league defense, we are legit and we are a force to be reckoned with, even more so than we already are. So that's why I think someone else put it in the comments earlier, let's build out this defense before we build out this offense. But of course, it's tough to pinpoint a spot where we're going to even add to the defense.
So what do you think about this comment? Truth says, shaking my head, all of you guys saying no to Julio, but the main reason the Chiefs are favored every year and almost went 3 times in a row is because of their offense. Their offense is what you fear. Why can't we have that?
People sleeping on the Chiefs defense, though. That's my main takeaway. I feel like people sleep on the Chiefs defense way too much. They act like they're like a bottom of the league defense. They're not. Like, that team gets after it. They take the ball away and they get the ball back into Mahomes' hands. That's where I feel like people don't understand.
They put the clamps on our receivers and that.
They sure did.
Our receivers were injured. I get that.
Here's
but
the thing, your boy CJM says, we lost the game because of weapons. Nobody got open. Bro, don't be dumb.
They didn't get open because the Chiefs have a good defense.
Well, no, not on top of that. You also got to remember that Stephon Diggs was playing with a torn oblique.
Yeah.
Cole Beasley had a fractured fibula. So I get where you're coming from. If the Buffalo Bills went out and dealt picks and Gabe Davis, whatever it is, for Julio Jones, I don't think you're going to see any of us come on here on the show and say, that was stupid. I hate that. No, I don't think anyone's going to come out and say that. We'll be excited. I think we're just more tepid about it. I'm not gonna be screaming at the top of every show, go get Julio Jones, until Julio Jones gets traded. To me, it's not the end of the world if we don't get Julio Jones. We will survive. We will get over it. To me, if we get Julio Jones, I'll be pumped. I will be, but I'm not counting on it. I'm pretty confident we can do so without Julio Jones. But yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, Truth, you're right. They're not elite. And I'm sorry if I made it out to be that they're elite, but to me, they're top 15 easy. There's no argument to say that they're below top 15. And if you have a star-studded offense like you do, and a top 15, top half of the league defense, getting the ball back to that star-studded offense, that's all you need. You don't need to overkill and overload your offense for success. I understand this league is being predicated on offensive success, but you need to combat that in some way. You're not going to win in a shootout every single game, especially playing in Buffalo with high winds and a lot of weather. You need a good defense.
Yeah, Mark Kleinfelder coming in saying, would you choose Ertz over Julio? The player Julio, a million times over.
Yeah, easy.
I also think all right, so Tommy Sweeney and a 5th round pick for Zach Ertz. Gabe Davis and a second round pick for Julio Jones. Which one of those two are you taking?
I don't like either, honestly.
I don't
But
either.
I mean, if you're saying, I would probably take Julio, honestly. I mean, I think we would utilize Julio more than we would Ertz. Like, the Bills wouldn't have to change their offense a lot to incorporate Julio.
Right.
They would just throw Julio on the outside in place of where Gabe Davis played. Sanders and Beasley can play the inside on 4 receiver sets, and then on 3 receiver sets you can substitute whenever you need to with Sanders, Julio on the outside with Diggs, and then or Beasley and Sanders in the slot. You could substitute either of them for each other. So I think it would be Julio in that case, because then your offense can kind of stay the same.
Yeah, I like that.
All right. To close out the show today, though, a couple people are mentioning his name earlier, and I want to talk about it a little bit. Isaiah Hodgins apparently is making the most of his opportunities at OTAs. And I need people in the comment section, or one of you guys, if you know or have seen some pictures. What number is Isaiah Hodgins wearing? Like, what's his listed number? Is he 16 or 87? Because he was 87 last year.
I thought it was 87.
I've heard rumors and rumblings that he has switched to 16. Has anyone seen?
I saw the play. Yeah, I saw the play. The play where he got stepped in front of by Dane Jackson. I believe he was wearing 16.
Damn it.
Yeah.
I don't like that number for him. I don't like that number for him.
Didn't Cody Ford change to 74 also?
Cody Ford 74 now. I don't like that number for Isaiah Hodgins. I
agree.
I prefer 87. Give him 87. I don't like 16 for a wide receiver. Fuck.
Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's 6. I think he's 6. I think he was 16 on that video. Yeah, there you go. Chris says 87 is Tanner Gentry. 16.
Can we cut McKenzie so we can get 19? Like, I don't like 16 on him.
Wow, you're cutting McKenzie just so Hodgins can wear 19.
It's funny when your boy CJM says 87 is a tight end, but like 15 years ago, like 87 was like a common receiver number. Yeah. Like they like
I like 18 for Hodgins.
I don't. No,
really?
I don't like 18 either. I don't think 18 is a good fucking receiver.
Man,
number.
you're weird about your wide receiver numbers. Why don't you just give him number 1?
Wide receiver numbers. I like 10. I like 11. I actually didn't like 14 until Stephon Diggs.
Same. I didn't like it on Watkins.
14. Yeah, it sucked on Watkins.
I don't know why. I don't know why. I didn't like it either.
But 10, 11, 13 are good. 15 is good. 17, 19 are good. And then 81, 83, 87. Those are the ones. I'm weird. I'm a weird guy.
Yeah,
you don't like 88?
You got some weird prejudice on your numbers over here.
No. If I was playing Madden right now, Isaiah Hodgins is immediately changing that jersey number. Name me one player. I understand he was 17 in college, and we're not giving a judge out. He looked filthy in college. Like, he looked good in that 17 OSU jersey. But name me a wide receiver in this league that's had success with 16.
Is Lockett?
Oh fuck, is he? God damn it, he is.
I need to double. I'm going off.
I thought he was 18.
No, I think Lockett's 16.
You're right. I think
help us in the chat. Help us if there's anyone number 16.
Yeah, he's 16.
Current or
Lockett's
current
16.
or past. Anyone that comes to brain.
But he's tiny, and he actually pulls off 16. But he's a little guy.
I suppose that has something to do with it. Robert Foster, that's a good one. I also didn't like it on him, though. I agree with you, Judge. I didn't like 16 on a wide receiver for whatever reason. Lockett does pull it off. Yeah. I wonder if it has something to do with that frame.
I don't know. Maybe I'll change my mind when I see him in pads. Like I see him in the
maybe
here's an interesting
practice jersey.
Guys, I figured it out why we're not trading for Julio. I figured it out. Because Beasley just switched back to 11 last year. And Trubisky now has 10. So then what? Trubisky's going to give up 10. Beasley's going to go back to 10.
No.
Trubisky's going to pick
the number 1. Julio will wear the number 1.
Julio at Alabama wore. Someone said this today. Alabama. Yeah, he wore like 8 or something.
I thought he was 9.
He wore 8 at Alabama.
I've seen a lot of jersey swaps of him
Alabama.
with 8.
And Jake, who gives a shit about Jake Fromm? Like, he'll give it to Jake Fromm.
That was one of my trade scenarios, like way back when before the draft. I was like, let's put Jake Fromm back in Georgia.
Josh Cribbs, that's a good one for 16.
Oh, that is a good one.
Can we give Isaiah Hodgins 7? Like Davis Webb, like find a new number?
I don't like 7 on a receiver.
Well, we're not going to like any single-digit numbers on receiver this year.
Yeah, like,
it's going to take a little.
No, I mean Stevenson's 5, right?
5. That's dirty. I like that.
I like that. I like that.
It's taking me a little. I'm still not there yet. I'm sure I'll like it, but it's taking me a little.
I said good receivers.
I like single-digit numbers on smaller receivers. Like it fits Stevenson. 5 fits Stevenson. I think it's nice.
Right.
It's
your
nice
stature dictates like your number too. Like I don't want to see like a little tiny guy wear like 81. I want to see my Alpha X receiver wear 81.
I get that. Yep.
Fearless Price wore 81.
Yeah. Well,
he wasn't. He wasn't
like,
tiny.
He wasn't tiny.
And that's why it's okay. As long as he's over, what was Fearless Price 6 feet? He was probably over.
I think Isaiah Hodgins could pull off 83.
Yeah.
Is he allowed to? Does he have the blessing from Andre Reed to wear 83?
I mean, people have done it. Lee Evans.
Yeah, you're right. But I don't know. To me, Lee Evans is just a step above Isaiah. I love Isaiah, but man, I keep giving him shit when he doesn't deserve it.
Anyway, we're off the rails now. That
we are. Back. We're talking about numbers. Judge is back. He's got Vegas energy.
So good in 87. 87,
yeah,
17. It makes sense. I just don't understand it.
We've had like didn't Jordan Matthews wear 87 though? It wasn't like the best number for us.
He did.
I don't know. Wait, what did no Naaman wore 19, right? Roosevelt.
Naaman wore 18.
18. Yeah, 18.
God, that's a blast from the past.
Donald Jones wore 19, I think.
Yeah, David Moore back in the day wore 83.
83 was always a popular number for receivers like back then.
I really like the number 83 for receivers. I really like it. I was an
80 was a very common receiver number.
Jacob Hollister is 80 this year, right?
Yeah. I like it.
I like most of the I like Gilliam's 81 right now. I don't like that, but
what was he 86 last year? Gilliam?
Yeah. Knox looks good in 88, and Tommy Sweeney pulls off 89.
Yeah, so. I like those two.
89. He's our Mercedes Lewis. Lewis, a popular 89er his whole career, I think. So,
yeah.
We all know what they say about 89ers. They just wish they were 69ers.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap it up tonight. Thank you, comment section. We appreciate it always. Thank you for checking us when we need to be checked, especially Truth to Hearts and others. We always appreciate it, and we're always willing to hear your takes and your opinions. It makes it more fun for us. So, Kendall, thank you for filling in for Steve while he was out. Steve, thanks for coming back in one piece for us to keep. We had to keep things together. 49 is hideous, but Edmonds makes it good. Says Bobby.
He's right.
I was so mad when he announced that, but when I saw it, I was like, it's all right. It works.
Right?
It's all right. Yeah.
Matt Milano really pulls off 58.
Yeah, he does.
51 is the best. 51 and 56 are the two best linebacker numbers.
I think it's 52. I think it's 52 for me. I don't know why. It's something Ray Lewis did to me.
51. I like 51.
I like 51 too, but I don't know. 52.
I like 55 too for some reason. I just think
Harold, we're working on it. Harold, God.
53. Tyrell Dodson is Tyrell Dodson 53 now?
I think he was last year too.
He looks sleek. He looks sleek in 53. And Nigel Bradham, one of my first favorite players, loved him.
This is one I'm also gonna have to get used to. I don't really like it yet. It's gonna take some time
57, right? So
yeah,
that's
same thing. It doesn't not for me yet. But Jerry with 55 for whatever reason, fine.
I like 55 though.
Yeah,
I like
fine
55.
with me. I don't get it. I'm a weirdo.
All right, guys. On that note, we're going to end it tonight. It's kind of weird sort of being in the driver's seat while Steve's here. So I'm just going to go ahead and sign off with it. Until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.